What's up, boys? Callsign Grimey here, and if you fly the Apache like I do, I'm willing to bet you found yourself in this situation plenty of times before. You've got a tank in your sights, the range is perfect, and you're getting ready to give George the consent to fire when he randomly decides he wants to look over at a tree. Or worse, if he's piloting for you, he enters into a death spiral when you ask for a hover. Well, it's 2026, and the good news is this George has finally gone to flight school. So today, I'm showing you how to master the new George AI interface so you can stop wrestling around with the controls and start hunting. Let's jump into it. So as we get started, let's make sure we're all on the same page here and take a look at the controls to make sure everything is set up properly. First and foremost, if you're on your AH64D pilot page, you're going to need the George AI Show Hide Bound. That's going to allow you to bring up the contextual menu for George to then select the various menu options. The next one you're going to need, I recommend anyway, is the George AI TAD Store Target, so that you can have George lock in some targets. If he spots something, you can lock in the target there. And then what's going to be one of the major differences from the prior George AI to the new revamped one is there's no longer a consent to fire button. That's now been replaced here with the George AI Multifunction Input. And the name fits the purpose of it because now this one button allows you to do multifunctional things. It's no longer simply just a consent to fire. You can do other things, and we'll dive into that as we look at the George AI when we're back in here. And the thing about this function too is that there's the tap and then there's a long hold, and that again will do different things depending on what you're looking at in the menu. So these are going to be the main three things you're going to need bound on the AH64D pilot page. If we go to the drop down and we go to George AI Helper, that's gonna be the rest of them right here. And that's simply just a up, down, left, right. You can have that bound again on whatever you have available. Definitely recommend all of this is bound on your HOTAS. It makes things more efficient. And we're back in the Apache now in the dark, and that's for a very important reason. There's a change with George now. You have to do a startup process for George in the front seat, in the CPG seat, in order for him to be functional during your mission and your flight. Otherwise, if you get in the air, you don't do this, he's not going to do anything. So this is very important. And what we're going to do first, obviously, is put on the battery power, and we'll crank on the APU to get power going. And we'll bring up the George menu here, and you'll see that it says no power right now. And once you get power up, you'll see that it went from no power to ready systems. Once you see that cue for ready systems, you're going to use that multi-function button to then give George the command for his startup. So we're going to go ahead and hold it down.
Copy. TADS is powered.
And now he's doing his startup in progress. So he's going to rattle off that the TADs are on, this is done, this is done. He'll let you know once his startup is completed.
My TADS is four-sided. FCR power coming on. I'm powering up the RLWR. Startup complete.
And now that he's completed his startup, you'll notice that we have the full contextual menu for George. We're on the ground. We're not going to be able to do much with it right now. We'll get an air here momentarily, but that is the startup process with the new George AI that you cannot skip. So do not forget to have George do his startup in the front seat if you're starting cold in the Apache. Let's get airborne and talk about the whole menu and what you need to know. Now that we're airborne here, we can go ahead and start diving into the new George AI interface menu system, which is a bit different for those of us that have been flying the Apache since release. This is a bit different here. If you're brand new to the Apache, this might be a bit overwhelming to understand. So I want to preface this and say that what I'm going to show you here is how to do the bare minimum to just make George shoot at things that you want it to shoot at, okay? If you want to dive deeper into all the intricacies of the George AI interface, I highly suggest you go and look up in the Apache Owner's Manual, which is in your DCS files, and I'll overlay the directory, how to get to it in your DCS folder once you're in your DCS folder. But there's a whole section dedicated to George AI where you can really dive into the structure of the whole system and what you can do with it, okay? So if you want a much more detailed explanation where you can sit and fly while you have it open up on your second monitor, that's what I would recommend you do to kind of learn it all. So with that being said, let me just walk you through what you need to know to make George functional and do what you need him to do. Now let's start talking about the new George AI interface, kind of how it all is lined up here. So you'll see that there's essentially three kind of rings here. You've got the innermost circle, then you've got the secondary one, and then you've got the text that's on the outside. So I look at it as like three rings. And anything that's in the inner circle is going to be functions that you can select utilizing the multifunction input button. And two ways: you can either do a short press or a long press with like more than a half a second or a second or so. Whatever is above the dotted line is going to be your short press multifunction input button, and anything below it is going to be a long press of that multifunction input button. Okay. As far as everything that's in the next circle, the next ring, is going to be short presses of your up, down, left, right under the George selection tools. Whatever you have that bound to, and then everything that's on the outside of that circle, the outermost text, is going to be long presses of everything in that same direction. So, for example, your PHS search is going to be up short. If you want to change from holding fire to free fire for George, that is going to be a long press of the up. All right. So that's how you interpret that. Very, very simple. We're going to try and keep this as simple as possible. Now, let's talk about different kind of search modes here. I want to mention this is when you come out, you're going to be in a fixed position here. If you want to essentially see where George is looking at right now, the crosshairs are here inside the diamond. When he slews around, you're going to want to go from acquisition to TADS, so that when he does slew around, for example, I'll have him look over here at my slave to my site.
Roger, slaving. I'm deslaved.
And now you can see where he's looking at. Okay. Now, there's a couple different searches here, and you can kind of get into the weeds of it all, but I want to, again, going to share with you what I find to be the most reliable and easiest way to do this. And if you want to dive into it deeper, as I said earlier, just dive into the owner manual PDF and get into the weeds of it all for the deeper level stuff you can get into. That being said, we've got an enemy out in front of us. Now, in that inner circle, you see that there's a point search and then there's an area search. Now, a point search, if, for example, we have something on our TSD, like a point on our TSD, it'll slew over there and then search, and we can have it search in that area. So, for example, here, we'll go from acquisition, we'll go to T01, which is this point over here for this unit. We'll slew that over, or we'll select it, and you'll see here that it bumped over there. Now, we can have them search in that area as well.
Roger, slaving. Deslave.
So now he's looking over there on top of me. I had him do a pilot search, but you can see here he's already found some enemies, and we'll exit out of that list. We'll cover that here in a second. The other thing you can do is you could do an area search, and I actually prefer area searches a lot more. So what I'm gonna have him do is I'm gonna have him slew over here.
Slaving. Deslaving.
All right. He's still looking down there for some reason. And then what you can do is you press and hold the multifunction input button. He's going to start sweeping in a 90-degree range for targets. So I'll press and hold the multifunction input button down.
Scanning for targets.
They're going to get the confirmation he's scanning. You're going to see everything scan around. Where's it at? There he is right there. He found something. He's looking. Actually, let's take it off of target, go back to TADS, and we'll see where he's looking at. So right now, he's looking actually pretty far out. It's not exactly where I want him to look at.
Units detected.
But he found some ground units right up there. And you'll see that the list came up for targets. This is very familiar. We should know what that's about right there. I'm going to exit out of that.
Ground unit contact.
And he's going to keep searching. So let's say, oh, he found an insurgent tech vehicle like he did right there. That's not a big priority. I want to find priority targets, some SAM threats, AAA threats. If I don't want to engage in that, I just exit out and he's going to continue his search. So I exit out.
Ground unit sighted.
Oh, he found some tanks. Okay, cool. Still not what I'm looking for. I'm still looking for something that's more of a bigger threat. I'm going to exit out. And he's going to keep sweeping in that area. And he'll keep doing that. And you can essentially stop him by doing down short to stop the search. He'll deslave. The other thing you can do is, let's say you've gone through quite a few targets. You thought you'd find like AAA or something, more of a higher threat, but you didn't. Well, let's say you want to kind of go back to something that you did find. If you look on the menu here, on the bottom, it says last found target. So again, we didn't find a super big threat, but all right, let's go back to something we did find. I'll do down long press, and it'll take us back to that last target that it did display to us, which were the tanks in this case. So It's a very functional search that I prefer when I'm using George, the new George, just because it'll find stuff. It's sweeping a different area. Even though I'm in active pause, I really like this search function for when you're moving. If I'm still flying around, I want to have them scan as I'm flying, because you don't want to be stationary like this. In most cases, you don't want to be sitting like we're sitting up here. So when you're moving around, if you're masking, you want to pop up. This is the kind of search I like to have them do to then find some stuff. If I do find something, like found some tanks, but we want to keep flying and keep looking around, don't forget that you have the target store button. I'll press it now.
Target stored.
And bam, now we've got a target. We can come back in our coordinates. We got target 2. We can acquire on target 2. So you can really be super functional while you're flying with George, with this area search, to find targets, lock some stuff into your TSD if you want to do that. Search for your priority targets. If you don't find priority target, go back to the last targets that George did find, so you can get some Hellfires on them. So it's a really robust search function that I enjoy personally. You also have, if we look at the outermost left ring, says forward area, we can long hold left and we can change our areas. So forward area he's gonna search in the area forward. If we do pilot PHS area, the difference here, I'm gonna select it. Now what happens is, if I have him search over here, he's just gonna look in a 45-degree angle once he slews over to my sights. So I'll have him come over here.
Roger, slaving. Searching.
So now, if I did this correct, he should only search, there it is, in a 45-degree angle in this direction. And so this is another way. Let's say you are flying parallel to an area where you want to pop up and look at. I would use this search. Let's say we're traveling in this direction, but I want to look over to the left. There might be some targets on our left. I would use the point PHS area to then have them search over here while we're still going in one direction to look for targets, and then find some, store them as target points, and then set up to mask myself behind something to then engage them at a later point. So 2 different functions. You can figure out which one's going to work better for you in the scenario that you're flying, and we'll stop him searching there.
Copy. Ceasefire.
All right, we'll go back to left long, and we'll go back to forward area. We'll select it. All right, and we will also make sure we're back on TADS. All right, so those are like the 2 main search functions that I use 98% of the time, that do the heavy lifting. You can also, of course, use just do your normal PHS search. So if you're flying around, oh, I see something right here, and just have them come up
and slaving
and slave over.
Deslaving.
You can do that as well. You do not need the George menu to be open to do an area search. You can still call for it or have George execute that when the menu is off or closed, just by simply holding down the multifunction input. I'm going to demonstrate that now. I'm going to hold it down.
Searching.
Bam. Now tell me that isn't pretty slick, right? It just eliminates one extra step. So if you're in the heat of a moment, you can still have them function for you without having to do a bunch of different hand, movements and pushing buttons. One button to at least get them to search and look for some targets. We should see something here in a second.
Ground unit spotted.
Now, when George says that he found some targets, in order to see what they are, you have to open up the menu.
Ground units detected.
So as soon as he said that, I opened up the George menu, and look at that. He found the tanks. If you don't open up the menu when he says that he found some targets, you won't get the target list. So the moment you hear him say, I found some targets, open up the George menu, bam, the list is open and it's ready for you to go ahead and carry out your next steps, which is a good point to talk about engagement. So what's really cool now about George, way more functional. Before, he was very rudimentary in its use and application. Now, George can do a bunch more and actually feel more like a real CPG. Not real, but better than he's been before. So we've got some targets right here. Let's say right now, he's identified them as enemies, but let's say in certain servers, they might not have that auto-identify. So let's just say that these were unknowns. We don't know that they're enemies. What can we do here? Well, we can come in, go to our vid, go to our TADS, and hit zoom, and you'll notice that we're seeing what the TADS is seeing right here. And let me click off of here. There we go. We got a clean screen. Now we're looking at what George is looking at. Now, if you notice, we zoomed in, but we still can't really see nothing. What's great about this menu, if you look at it, we've got some functions for us to increase the zoom. You see that TAD Zoom Plus at the top. So what we're going to do now is we're going to long press up. We can zoom in. We do another layer. Zoom in. Go one more. All right. So we see that there's 4 tanks. Now we're in FLIR mode. Maybe it's a little hard to tell exactly with the FLIR mode, is this friend or foe? If you look on the George AI interface, you see that in the innermost circle, we have 2 options. We can either select, which is a short multifunction input button press, or long press and change the viewing on the display here. So we're gonna long press, and it's gonna put us into DTV mode, which is a way better image for us to see. Oh, those are clearly enemy units. We'll back out, we'll zoom out a little bit. Oops, we'll zoom out with the down. So we can clearly see these are enemy units. I've now identified them. I can confirm that these are enemy units. And you're able to do all of this with just a few button presses with the new interface. Way more functional and valuable, in my opinion. So now that we've identified these targets, what can we do? Before, George would have to, you'd select one unit to engage, he'd fire, you pull up the list, you re-engage. Gone are the days. Now George can go ahead and engage multiple targets. So let's go ahead and we'll start here at the bottom one. We can cycle through our targets, and when we select targets, we can select multiple targets for George to track and lock and then fire on. What's also great about this process is that out of these 4 units, let's say one of them was a AAA that's more of an immediate threat, we can cycle through the 4 units and select the one that's the biggest threat, the priority, and assign it that first slot. Then I can come down here. All right, this second unit right here, oh, this is the next biggest threat. He's going to be the second one in the sequence. All right, then this one's the third one in the sequence, and this last one is not a super big threat, but he'll go 4th. So we can actually pick the sequencing of the targets we're going to engage with George in the new version, which is tremendously big, improvement right here, especially when we're talking about prioritizing high threats. So now we've got our sequencing set for these units to take out, and in order to store this and have George lock this in and begin to do the engagement, we need to hit right short for track target. Once we do that, you're gonna see what George does next. So we'll hit right short.
Target acquired.
Now he's locked them. If we look back on our display, you'll see here he's got the IET lock on that first one, and he's gonna follow that sequence, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, in that order to take out these units. Next, what we need to do is come out of the no weapon mode, which, by the way, I should have mentioned before. When you are in no weapon mode, that's what's gonna give you access to all of these search options. If you have a weapon selected, you're not going to have the search option. So keep that in mind going forward. If you want to have all the different search modes and working through your searching and such, you need to have no weapon selected. Now, once you've done your searching, you've got everything locked in, you're ready to engage. We're going to go left short to select our missiles.
Lasers off. Laser on.
And he's going to go ahead and
lasers off.
Store the target. So he's got that. He's got the Hellfire ready to go. We got the radar guided ones for today. And now you'll see here we have some more options. If you look where it has the fire, if we short press the multifunction input, he'll begin the fire. However, let's say that he was tracking this target, or he was on it but it was off. Like, let's say it was off to the corner, off to the left a little bit. It wasn't exactly on the target. You're gonna go ahead and utilize that adjust plus function, which is going to adjust, have George readjust the line of sight over that target. So we'll press and hold the multifunction button here.
Copy.
All right, and he's adjusting the target. So now he's on it. He was already on it, but I just want to demonstrate that you could get him to get a better alignment on that target. So we're ready to go. We've got good line of sight, everything's stored. Now, there's two ways to go about this. Right now, we are set up so that we have to give George the consent to fire via the multi-function input button. We can also flip over to free fire and let George just go to town. I'm going to go ahead and let George go to town. So I'm going to go ahead and hit up long to take us into free fire mode.
Roger, engaging.
And now he's going to go to town. So fire off on that one. You should
Laser on.
fire and store.
Laser's off.
There it is.
Slewing to the next
There
target.
it is.
I got the target.
So what's really great about this mode is you can still focus on flying and evading, masking, and you can let George just do all that work for you. All right, now that I showed you kind of the process of it all, let me demonstrate how I would do this, in a real situation in the sim. So we know that there's something off to our right side. I don't want to get too close. I want to kind of keep my distance and ride alongside, but I want George to look over there. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over from forward area to pilot head site area search. I'm going to look over in that direction, and I'm going to hold down the multifunction input for the area.
Roger, slaving.
He's going to slave over.
Ground unit sighted.
And there it is. He found some units. I'm going to store those real quick. 1, 2.
Tracking target.
He's tracking them. So while he's doing that, I'm going to prepare
Laser's off. Laser on.
the Hellfires, and I'm going to get
Laser
myself
off.
into a better position to engage these targets so that we're a safe distance away. So we'll spin back around here. He's still looking in the direction. There he is right there. We're going to put ourselves into a hold right here. And we'll go ahead and give him the consent to fire. Stabilize ourselves.
Stand by.
Looks like he's going to get himself ready to go. Trying to go drag in too far in there.
Blazing.
There it is.
Laser's off. Engaging.
Doing fire. And we get to just focus on maintaining our hover here. Keep it smooth.
Moving to next target.
Next target.
Target acquired.
He's gonna laze it.
Blazing. Laser's off.
There it is.
Engaging.
And we're off. And I'm gonna have him also go back into
Delost.
search mode. I'm gonna cue it over there.
Good effects on target.
Very good. I'm gonna have him search again while we're patrolling.
And slave. Scanning with tabs. Ground unit sighted.
There it is. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll
Target acquired.
lock him in. Get ourselves into a safer spot here. Looks like we got a little bit of a hill right here, so we can kind of engage right behind it for protection. And so you see, trying to pop in, pop out, not be overly exposed. That's the idea.
Target lost.
Yep, I know you lost it. Don't worry. So we'll kind of perch ourselves up over here. And we should see he's looking right over here. So we'll pop up. Just enough for him to get a line of sight again. And check our speed here. There they are over there. And wait for him to...
Laser's off. Laser on.
There we go.
Laser's off. Engaging.
And I'm gonna let him go.
Slaving. Deslaving.
Free fire here. I accidentally screwed that up.
Target acquired.
And I'm gonna hold back here.
Laser on.
And he's just gonna free fire at this point.
Laser's off.
And just like that, you can wipe them out pretty quick. Now, this isn't as fast as just using your radar to fire them off yourself, but if you want a CPG feel, I'd have to say ED did a good job with this upgrade to George 2.0, if you will. So, hopefully you found this tutorial useful. Again, this was kind of like the fast down and dirty that kind of get you going and get them and using them in an effective way to dive into it even more and learn all the intricacies of it all. Highly suggest, again, recapping here, go read the owner's manual that's in your DCS files, and hopefully you guys found this video useful. If you did, feel free to subscribe. Hope you enjoyed the video, boys. Callsign Grimey out.